There is a silent strength in the moments we choose not to react. In a world where outrage, impatience, and impulsive actions are becoming increasingly common, remaining silent, feeling without being ruled by emotion, has gradually become a forgotten art. The image of the Stoics, wise men who lived centuries ago, still teaches us one important thing. We are not disturbed by events around us, but by the way we perceive them. But take a moment to reflect. How many times in life have we willingly given away our peace, our freedom to the noise of the world, to a careless remark, or to a fleeting, uncomfortable feeling? Could it be that sometimes those impulsive reactions are what make our souls more weary and disturbed? And have you ever asked yourself, why do we let such small things affect us so easily? Today, I invite you to explore with me another aspect of freedom. Freedom does not come from controlling life. It is not about forcing everything to happen our way. True freedom comes from mastering how we respond to what life brings us. This does not mean suppressing our emotions, but learning to master the space between what happens and what we choose to do next. It is in that space that your true power is formed. Have you ever wondered why there are moments in life when you feel unshakable, no matter how difficult things get around you? In those very moments, you have found your inner strength. The Stoics, with their deep understanding of human nature, pointed out that mastering emotions is not about forcing ourselves into silence or endurance, but about understanding and skillfully managing them. On this journey, if you feel a sense of resonance, I invite you to like this episode, share it with someone in need, and accompany me in discovering the true power we can find in the ability not to react. Let us start with one crucial first step: identifying your emotional triggers. Every emotion we react to carries a story. But did you know that story is not always about the present? Sometimes they are long-hidden things, memories from childhood, when we were not yet mature or aware enough to protect ourselves. These very memories created deep imprints in our minds, and perhaps they are the reason we overreact to certain present situations. Think back to the last time you reacted strongly. Was it just because of a gentle criticism of your idea, and you felt a wave of anger rise like a great tide? Or was it because someone ignored you, and the feeling of being hurt surged far beyond what the situation warranted? Those moments are merely the surface. Beneath them are deeper stories, old pains, and feelings of not being understood from the past. These are your emotional triggers. The invisible scripts you are unaware are driving your reactions. The Stoics understood this very well, and Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, it is not the thing itself that distresses you, but your judgment about it. And this judgment, where does it come from, if not from your deepest and most formative experiences?" To master our emotions, we must stop viewing emotional reactions as random occurrences and begin to see them as part of a more complex inner structure. This perspective starts with awareness without judgment, without blame. The important thing is to observe ourselves, not to criticize, but to better understand who we are. Each time a strong emotion arises, try pausing and asking yourself, what am I really reacting to? Is it just the present situation, or is there something deeper driving your actions? Sometimes you may realize that a simple criticism, even just a few words, can hurt you more than expected. Or a moment of abandonment or misunderstanding might bring you face to face with deep loneliness you thought you had overcome. These emotions are not signs of weakness. In fact, they are invitations for you to understand yourself more deeply, to uncover what has shaped the person you are today. Self-awareness is the bridge between being ruled by emotion and being able to rule over it. Can you imagine what that looks like? Imagine walking into a dark room where everything is blurry and full of obstacles. Without light, each step you take stumbles over something. But when you turn on the light, when you bring awareness into that room, everything becomes clearer. You no longer trip. You no longer blame the darkness. You move with purpose and wisdom. In the same way, when you become clearly aware of your emotions, you no longer let them control you. You become the one guiding your emotions, not the one being guided by them. And that is one of the profound truths the Stoics passed down. It is not about eliminating emotional triggers entirely, but about seeing them clearly, so they no longer have power over you. Epictetus, a great Stoic, taught that events themselves are neutral. It is our interpretation, our attachments and old wounds that give them emotional weight. When you begin to recognize the origins of your emotional triggers, that is when you are taking the first step toward neutrality, which is also a step toward freedom. Yes, this is a continuous process, a journey that is not easy. You will not change everything overnight, but each day, as you observe and reflect, each moment when you resist being overwhelmed by emotion is a small victory. Every time you become aware of something about yourself, you lay a solid brick in the foundation of your emotional resilience. Try asking yourself often, where is this reaction coming from? Is it really just because of this situation? Or am I still carrying an old story, an unresolved memory from the past? When you begin asking yourself such questions, you will gradually notice that the emotional waves which once swept you away are no longer strong enough to pull you out of control. You will stand more firmly, not because life has become easier, but because you have become much stronger. This is not a loss of emotion, but the arrival of true freedom. Freedom to feel without being ruled by feelings. Freedom to respond without being imprisoned by old guilt. Freedom to live without carrying the invisible burdens of a past you no longer owe anything to. This is the silent revolution within you, a profound but powerful transformation. And then, the next step on this journey is to pay attention to the body, the incredibly subtle emotional warning system we often overlook. Before the mind can react or make sense of a situation, your body has already begun to send warning signals. You may not notice it right away, but if you pay attention, you will see that before you even say, "I'm angry" or "I'm anxious," your body has already given you signs. Your heart rate may suddenly increase, your chest may feel tight, or your shoulders may begin to tense. Shallow breaths you didn't even realize you were taking. These are the body's first signals to you. The body, in fact, is the earliest messenger of emotion. If you know how to listen and observe carefully, it becomes your most loyal companion in mastering your emotions. But this is not always easy. In reality, we often live disconnected from our bodies, too caught up in thought, rushing through work, forgetting that strong emotions always come with a physical sign. Every emotion, every wave of feeling, carries a physical expression. Anger might cause your jaw to clench. Anxiety might twist your stomach. Sadness might weigh on your chest like a heavy pressure. These sensations are not random accidents. They are warning signals from the body, at first gentle, but growing stronger if you continue to ignore them. The Stoics understood that training the mind through observation is key to emotional mastery. While they did not speak much about the body, their practices reflected a deep respect for self-awareness in all its forms. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoics, often wrote about observing his mind from a distance, watching its subtle movements without judgment. But today, we understand that observation begins not only in the mind, but also in the body, where emotions are born. Paying attention to the body is the starting point for reclaiming the sacred pause between stimulus and response. If, instead of rushing to react with anger, fear, or sadness, you pause for a moment and tune into your body, you will notice the first signs of emotion. You will feel the tension in your muscles, the heat in your chest, or the tightening in your stomach. And when you notice this, you open a door where choice appears. It is the choice not to be a victim of unconscious emotion, but to become an active participant in your own experience. When you begin to train yourself to turn inward instead of reacting impulsively, you will find that you can breathe into the tension, even gently place your hand over your chest and feel your heartbeat. Try doing that, and you will realize there is no need to rush or force a solution. Just slow down and ask yourself, what is my body saying, before my mind tries to explain it? This practice of body-based awareness is not an easy habit to form, but it is incredibly valuable. It requires presence, it requires patience, and most importantly, a willingness to feel discomfort without running away from it. But once you begin to get used to this practice, you will realize that no emotion can overpower you if you know how to listen to and respond to it consciously. When you begin to recognize and pay attention to the body as an emotional warning system, you will discover something important. The body, with all the subtle signals it offers, is actually more honest than the mind. While the mind can rationalize, deny, or distort the truth, the body does not lie. Muscle tension when you feel unsafe, shallow breaths when you feel ignored, are signals that cannot be ignored. They are not signs of weakness, but invitations to understand yourself more deeply. And in that understanding, you will find the strength to master your emotions. Think of these bodily signals as opportunities. If you can recognize them early enough, you will be able to intervene before the emotional storm erupts. A few deep breaths can calm anger before it flares up. Relaxing your shoulders can signal safety back to your nervous system. Slowing your breath is a way to break the spiral of panic before it engulfs you. None of these things are about suppressing emotions. They are ways to ride the wave instead of being drowned by it. As Seneca once said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Much of the suffering we experience comes from ignoring the warning signs of the body and letting the mind lead us into emotional excess. So if you pause and pay attention to the signals from your body, you will begin to see that they are not uncontrollable storms. Instead, they are like small waves you can learn to ride. You are not a victim of your emotions, but an active participant in how to navigate them. When you pay attention to your body, you interrupt the emotional pull and bring yourself back to the present moment, where you still have the power to choose a wise response. It is in these moments of awareness that freedom begins. Imagine your body as a living emotional warning system. Every signal it sends is an opportunity for you to choose a different path. Instead of reacting instantly with anger or anxiety, you can take a step back, breathe and respond from wisdom instead of instinct. This is not about suppressing emotions, but about honoring them. You listen to them, feel them fully, and only then do you act. This practice is not easy, but over time, it will become your second nature. You will start to recognize the sensations in your body more quickly and more subtly, allowing you to navigate them more effectively. Sensitivity is not overreacting. It is the ability to detect early, to recognize anger before it becomes rage, to notice anxiety before it paralyzes, and once you notice, you can choose patience over impulse, calm over chaos, clarity over confusion. Paying attention to the body is not a minor practice. It is the foundation of emotional control. Because if you cannot clearly perceive your inner world, you will always be swayed by external forces. When you master your body's signals, you begin to master the emotional storms of your life. A crucial step in the journey of emotional mastery is creating a pause before you react. This pause, however brief and subtle, is where true freedom resides. Most people miss this moment. They react immediately, like a spark meeting dry grass. But the greatest power you can cultivate is the ability to recognize that pause, expand it, and live within it. This pause is where self-mastery begins. True, emotional mastery is not about suppressing or denying emotions, but about learning to choose your actions instead of letting emotions control you. The world often glorifies fast reactions. Be quick, sharp, and respond immediately. But true wisdom is not like that. Wisdom is when you do not rush, do not retreat, but wait, listen, and then respond with care. The Stoics understood this deeply thousands of years ago. Epictetus once taught that although we cannot control external events, we can always control our judgment of them. And that judgment happens in the pause, the moment when we can choose to respond consciously. Without that pause, we become puppets, pulled by the strings of circumstance. Creating that pause is not easy, because our biology is wired to act quickly, to fight, flee, or freeze when we feel threatened. The feeling of being insulted, ashamed, or angry floods the body with energy, readying it for action. But today, this very instinct often causes harm, ruining conversations, work, and relationships. In the modern world, it is not the strongest who thrive, but those who can breathe through the first wave of emotion and choose a response aligned with their highest values rather than being driven by fleeting feelings. So how can we build this pause into our everyday lives? The answer lies in a practice that is incredibly simple, yet deeply powerful: breathing. When emotions surge and you feel as though everything is pushing you toward an immediate reaction, instead of rushing to speak or act, just breathe. A slow, conscious breath can break the chain of impulsive reactions you usually fall into. It sends a message to your nervous system that you are not in immediate danger, that there is still time. that you are perfectly safe to think and choose your next move. Breathing is a way to remind yourself, stay calm. And alongside that, breathing invites reflection. As you breathe in and out slowly, gently ask yourself, what am I about to do? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it wise? These questions create just enough distance between you and your emotion to allow you to see it more clearly. You will no longer see the emotion as a master to obey, but as a messenger you can choose to listen to or let go. At first, this may not feel natural. The urge to react quickly is strong, as it is a habit shaped over many years. You might feel silly just breathing instead of responding instantly. You might feel weak for pausing while everything inside you is shouting for action. But over time, you will discover a different kind of strength, a strength that cannot be provoked or shaken. This strength is not the kind that bursts out instantly. It is the steady strength that holds firm even when anger, fear, or shame rise with intensity. Marcus Aurelius expressed this perfectly when he said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." True strength lies in your ability to restrain yourself, not in acting on impulse, but in choosing when and how to respond to your emotions. It is in the gentle refusal to be pulled by fleeting emotions that you will find your unmoving center. Creating the pause does not mean you become passive. It does not mean letting others walk over you or staying silent when action is needed. The pause is a conscious choice. Sometimes, after pausing, you will still need to speak clearly to protect your boundaries or assert your needs. But the difference is that you act from clarity, not chaos, from principle, not panic. Imagine yourself as a musician. Every note you play matters, but so do the silences between the notes. Without the pauses, music becomes only noise. Your life is the same. Every word you say, every action you take is a note in the music of your life. And the pauses are where meaning is created, where you can adjust the rhythm to make your life's melody rich and harmonious. So train yourself to live in those pauses. Do not rush to react when faced with criticism, discomfort, fear, or wounded pride. Pause for a moment. A single deep breath, 1 second of reflection, can change the entire direction of a moment. Sometimes it can change the course of a relationship, a career, or even your life. The difference between an impulsive reaction and a conscious response is that pause. Over time, this pause will grow. What at first may feel like an impossible effort will gradually become a natural rhythm in your life. You will no longer be a slave to every emotion that passes through you. You will have freedom, freedom to choose, freedom to respond, freedom to remain at peace even when the world around you is losing its peace. Create that pause, live in it, and protect it. Because in that small and sacred space between stimulus and response, you hold the key to an unshakable life. It is the key to peace, clarity, and true freedom. And once you have built this pause into your life, the next practice is mindfulness in daily moments. We often think mindfulness is something distant, something that can only be practiced in silent retreats, during meditation sessions, or in fleeting moments stolen from the rush of daily life. But in truth, Mindfulness can and should be practiced every day. The truth about mindfulness is much simpler than we imagine, and also deeper than you might think. Mindfulness is not an event you attend, nor a ritual you must perform. It is how you show up in life, how you breathe, walk, eat, and speak. It is a conscious presence in every action, large or small, that brings meaning even to the most ordinary things. Mindfulness is the practice of returning to the present moment, again and again. At the heart of mindfulness is the awareness of life as it is happening, instead of missing it by living in thoughts of the past or worries about the future. The Stoics, though they did not use the word mindfulness, embodied this spirit completely. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reminded himself to return to the task at hand, to remain in the present, and to act with full attention and integrity, no matter how small the action may be. But the reality is that we often drift in thought. How many times in your life have you lived through an entire day without truly being present in it? Doing everything automatically, as if it were a habit that required no thought. Eating without tasting, hearing without truly listening, speaking without intention. In those moments, life passes us by without our even noticing. Not because life moves too fast, but because we are not truly there to receive it. To reclaim your mind, to begin mastering your emotional reactions, you must first reclaim your attention. Practicing mindfulness in daily life is the art of doing just that. It begins with simple invitations. When you eat, just eat. Be aware of the flavors, the texture of the food, the movement of your hands as you bring it to your mouth. When you walk, just walk. Feel the ground beneath your feet, your breathing, the breeze brushing your skin. When you speak, just speak. Listen fully to yourself and the person in front of you without preparing your response in your mind. Every ordinary action in life contains an opportunity for you to be present, to do it with attention and awareness. And the true power of mindfulness is not only in calming the mind, though that will certainly happen, but in sharpening your perception. It helps you notice the first flickers of emotion before they become roaring fires. It helps you see the subtle beginnings of impatience, of sadness, of pride, before they push you into actions you may later regret. Mindfulness is, in fact, the gradual strengthening of the inner observer, the wise part of you that can step back, see situations clearly, and choose a response with intention. Sometimes we are tempted to believe that such awareness requires more time, more space, or more quiet than modern life allows. But mindfulness is not about adding something new to your day. It is about changing the quality of what is already there. Washing the dishes can be mindfulness. Writing an email can be mindfulness. Even while sitting in traffic, you can practice mindfulness if you are fully present, instead of being swept away by frustration or worry. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." That is mindfulness, the art of immersing yourself in the richness of the present without demanding it be different, without needing it to promise more. Mindfulness is not passivity. It is not about avoiding responsibilities or life's challenges. On the contrary, mindfulness is full presence in the truest sense of living. When you are truly present, you become more effective, not less. Your actions carry more strength because they are not diluted by distraction. Your words become more meaningful because each one is chosen carefully, with awareness and understanding. So, when you begin to practice mindfulness in daily life, you will realize that every moment can become an opportunity for full presence. Every action, no matter how small, can become meaningful when you bring your full attention and awareness to it. Mindfulness is not something distant or disconnected from your everyday experience, but something you can live in every day, every minute, every second. And from there, you will discover peace, clarity, and emotional mastery in every situation. Your emotions begin to lose their grip when you can recognize them in their earliest form, before they gather unstoppable momentum. The path of mindfulness begins with small but important choices. A conscious breath, a conversation that is fully listened to, a meal eaten without a screen, without rush, without distraction. Do not underestimate these small acts, for they are what create the greatest changes. Like drops of water carving stone, the power of mindfulness accumulates slowly and quietly until one day you look back and see the transformation. Your mind will be clearer, your heart steadier, and your life richer. Not because your circumstances have changed, but because you have truly returned to yourself. You have stepped fully into your life instead of letting it pass by without your presence. When the storms of life arrive as they always do, mindfulness will be the anchor that keeps you grounded. It cannot stop the rain, but it will keep you from being swept away. It will not erase sorrow or anger, but it will help you hold them gently, allowing you to see them clearly and respond with wisdom instead of instinct. This is the great secret. This life you seek, the peace you long for, and the strength you desire are not somewhere far away. They are right here, in this breath, in this step, in this conversation. They have always been here, waiting for you to notice and awaken to them. Practice mindfulness in your daily life, and you will discover that presence is not just a practice. It is a homecoming to your true self. An essential element in mastering emotions and cultivating presence is the nourishment of deep self-awareness. Understanding yourself is the foundation of all wisdom. However, in a world that constantly pulls our attention outward to the news, to noise, to the endless movement of others turning inward has become a rare act, almost revolutionary in nature. Self-awareness is not just paying attention to what you are doing. It is understanding why you are doing it. Self-awareness is the art of holding up a mirror to your mind and looking without distortion, without defensiveness, and without fear. Most people live in reaction to themselves rather than in relationship with themselves. They move through the world pulled by moods they do not understand, by desires they cannot explain, and by fears they refuse to name. Without self-awareness, emotions do not serve you, they rule you. But when you cultivate deep self-awareness, you begin to realize that every thought, every feeling, every reaction is not a random event. They are threads weaving the inner structure of your emotional world. The Stoics always encourage constant self-reflection. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Yet he also devoted countless pages to questioning his own motives, examining his impulses and observing his judgments. This was not self-criticism, but inner clarity. Because without clarity, there can be no freedom. Cultivating deep self-awareness begins with a simple practice: observing without judgment. Notice the thoughts that pass through your mind. Observe the waves of emotion as they rise and fall. When you feel anger, pause and observe it. Ask yourself, what triggered this anger? What story am I telling myself? When you feel sadness, sit with it and feel it. Where in your body do you experience it? What memory or expectation is feeding it? This is not to fix your emotions, but to understand them. Like an astronomer observing the stars with curiosity, not with judgment. Only when you truly observe and understand your emotions can you respond wisely without being driven by them. Then self-awareness not only helps you master your emotions, but also brings peace and freedom to your inner life. Journaling can become a powerful companion on the path to emotional mastery and self-awareness. But not the kind of writing filled with polished sentences or profound ideas. It is simply the honest act of placing your inner world onto paper. Write your fears, your frustrations, your dreams, and your doubts. When you write, you are not just recording emotions, you are seeing them outside yourself. And in that act, you begin to loosen the invisible grip those emotions may have on you. A thought written down is no longer vague, it becomes tangible. What is seen can be understood, and what is understood can be transformed. Self-awareness requires that we not only see what is easy, but that we are also willing to face the uncomfortable truths about ourselves. It is easy to recognize when others hurt us, but harder to see when we are clinging to the role of the victim. It is easy to spot injustice outside ourselves, but more difficult to admit that pride may be blinding us. Deep self-awareness means facing even the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid, not with harshness, not with shame, but with gentle honesty and the courage to say, this too is a part of me. And because I see it, I am no longer bound by it. Seneca once said that no one is more unfortunate than the one who has never faced adversity, for they have no opportunity to prove themselves. In the same spirit, no one is more lost than the one who has never looked within. If you do not face the truth in your own mind, you will be swept away like a rudderless boat in every storm. But when you understand yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and emotional triggers, you can steer your life with clear intention. Self-awareness is not a destination, but a daily practice, a lifelong dialogue with yourself. There will be days when you are clear and strong, when you can understand your emotions as they arise. And there will be days when you stumble, repeat old patterns, and miss the signs. That too is part of the journey. The goal is not perfection, but persistence. Every small moment of honest observation strengthens your capacity to live with awareness rather than reaction. When you nurture self-awareness, you also nurture compassion first for yourself, then for others. You begin to see that everyone is carrying silent battles, invisible struggles. And from that place, you become less quick to judge, more ready to understand. This understanding quietly transforms the way you move through the world. There is a peace that comes from knowing yourself, a steadiness that is not easily shaken by anything outside you. When you truly see yourself, both the light and the shadow, you are no longer so easily manipulated by praise or crushed by criticism. You are anchored in something deeper than opinions, deeper than circumstances, anchored in the simple and unshakable truth of who you are. Nurture deep self-awareness, and you will no longer live under the rule of invisible forces within you. You become the quiet master of your mind, not through force, but through the patient and courageous act of seeing clearly. And then, the next step on this path is to name and accept your emotions. You cannot master what you refuse to name. Emotions, like waves, rise, crest, and fall. If you don't know which wave you are riding, you can easily be swept into actions you may later regret. To cultivate emotional control, you must first develop emotional literacy, the ability to recognize what you are feeling and call it by its true name. Learn to sit with your emotions without panic or judgment. This may sound simple, but it is not easy. When you feel a strong emotion, instead of reacting or escaping, you need to pause, identify it, and allow yourself to feel it fully. Do not rush to judge it as bad or wrong. Let the emotion be present, simply recognize it and name it. When you can do this, you will begin to see that emotions are not something to fear, but tools for understanding yourself and guiding you toward growth. Emotions that are unnamed and not understood can only control you unconsciously. But when you recognize them and face them, you can respond wisely and stay in charge of yourself. Let each emotion become an opportunity to know yourself more deeply. In doing so, you are no longer the victim of emotion, but the leader, the one actively shaping your life. Many of us were never taught how to name our emotions. We were often taught that anger is wrong, sadness is weakness, fear is failure. We learned to suppress discomfort, to reject inconvenient feelings. But suppression is not control, and denial is not mastery. What you push away only grows stronger in the dark. The Stoics, though known for their emotional restraint, never encouraged ignoring emotions. They encouraged understanding them, because only through understanding does true strength arise. Seneca wrote, "No one is more unfortunate than the one who has never faced adversity, for they have no opportunity to prove themselves. And in that same spirit, no one is more vulnerable than the one who refuses to face the emotions stirring within them." True strength does not lie in pretending you are unmoved, but in seeing clearly how you are moved and choosing to respond from that clarity. Naming emotion is the first act of courage. It demands honesty and vulnerability. You must be brave enough to admit, this is anger, this is fear, this is sorrow. And sometimes you must also say, this is envy. You do not need to act on that emotion. You do not need to be consumed by it. You only need to recognize it and see it. The act of naming the emotion shifts you from being caught in the storm to becoming the observer of the storm. Instead of being swept up in some vague force, you can step back and say, I'm experiencing frustration right now. This shift from identifying with the emotion to observing it is profound. You are not the emotion. You are the one witnessing it. And witnessing creates space. Space to choose, space to breathe, space to respond with wisdom instead of impulse. Once you name the emotion, the next step is acceptance. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It does not mean agreeing with every emotion or letting them control you. Acceptance means acknowledging that something is present within you, that anger, fear, or sadness does not disappear simply because you deny it. If you deny it, it only grows stronger in the dark. Acceptance allows you to work with reality rather than fight against it. The truth is, to be human is to feel a wide, messy, and complex range of emotions. No one is immune. Not the wise, not the disciplined, not the strong. The difference is not in having no emotions, but in being able to face them without letting them break you. Think of emotions like weather. There are sunny days and there are storms. You don't stand in the rain yelling at the sky, demanding it to stop. You accept that it's raining and respond accordingly. You find shelter, move carefully, wait for the skies to clear. Emotions are like that too. Acceptance allows you to navigate emotional storms with steadiness and grace. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on life's difficulties not as injustices, but as facts. You have power over your mind, not as external events. Applying this to emotions means recognizing that while you may not control the initial feeling, you do control how you respond to it. And that control begins the moment you recognize and accept what is rising within you. There is a humility in this process. Humility to admit that we are not always rational, not always calm, not always noble. But it is in that humility that we find the real strength to resist being swept away by strong emotions. At that point, you become the leader of your emotions, not their victim. Humility to admit that we are moved by fear, anger, desire, and sadness, sometimes all in the span of an hour. But within that is a deep dignity. When you accept your emotions, without judgment, you reclaim your power. You are no longer a puppet to rejected emotions. You become a conscious participant in your inner world. Practice naming your emotions gently. There is no need to dissect them endlessly. A simple acknowledgement is enough. This is anger. This is loneliness. This is hope. Practice accepting them with kindness, as if greeting an old friend at your doorstep. You don't have to invite them to stay forever, but you acknowledge their presence with respect. And remember, emotions are temporary guests. They come and go, like the seasons. Your task is not to freeze them or fight them. Your task is to recognize them, accept them, and let them move through you without letting them take over you. In the end, emotional mastery is not about feeling less, but about feeling wisely. It is about living fully within your inner world without letting it rule you. It is knowing that you can feel anger without lashing out, feel fear without shrinking back, feel sadness without being drowned. Name it, accept it, breathe through it, and choose that is the quiet, unglamorous, but powerful path to freedom. And the next step on this journey is to reframe negative thinking. The stories we tell ourselves shape the lives we live. Often, the suffering does not come from what happens to us, but from the meaning we assign to it. An insult can become a declaration of our worthlessness. A failure can become a prophecy for more failure. A moment of rejection can, in our minds, turn into a lifelong deficiency. This is the silent, persistent work of unchecked negative thoughts, and they are one of the greatest causes of emotional suffering. The Stoics saw this very clearly. They taught that events themselves are neutral. It is our judgments that give them color, weight, and emotional energy. As Epictetus said, what matters is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it, and that response begins with your thinking. Before there is anger, fear, or despair, There is always an interpretation, often so automatic that we don't even notice it. Reframing negative thinking is not about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about seeing the event clearly, stripping away the layers of tragic storytelling, and choosing a more empowering perspective. It is the discipline of challenging the first thought, the automatic thought, and asking yourself, is this the only way to see this? Is it true? Imagine a friend cancels plans with you. An unexamined mind might instantly jump to the conclusion, they don't care about me. I don't matter. I'm always abandoned. But another perspective also exists. Maybe they had an emergency. Maybe they're overwhelmed, or maybe it has nothing to do with your worth at all. When you reframe, you create choice. You reclaim control over your inner world. This is not naive optimism, but realistic flexibility. It is the recognition that your initial emotional reaction is often the loudest but rarely the wisest. This flexibility allows you to remain calm and clear-headed in the face of challenges. Training your mind to question its own impulses is a vital step in emotional mastery. It is the work of holding up the stories you tell yourself to the light so that you can truly see them. It begins with awareness. When you notice yourself spiraling into negativity, pause for a moment. Name your thoughts clearly. I'm thinking I'm not good enough because I made a mistake. I'm thinking this failure defines me. Naming these thoughts weakens their invisible grip. Thoughts thrive in the dark, but once they are brought into the light, they lose their power. After identifying them, challenge them. Does a mistake really define your worth? Does one failure truly predict your future? Does a rejection define your entire identity? The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, would smile gently here and remind us that we are not our circumstances, but how we respond to them. Reframing negative thinking also invites neutrality. Not every event needs to be labeled as good or bad. Sometimes, events are simply events, raw material for growth, for practice, for building resilience. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, this is not good or bad, it simply is. This neutrality holds tremendous power. It allows you to meet life with open hands rather than clenched fists. Over time, reframing negative thoughts becomes less about resisting negativity and more about building a new mental habit. A habit that helps you see possibility where you once saw only dead ends. A habit that lets you view obstacles as lessons, not as sentences. A habit that helps you treat yourself with kindness when you stumble, instead of judging yourself harshly. This does not mean the pain will disappear. Life will still hurt at times. However, with reframing, wounds become teachers rather than life sentences. Pain no longer defines your identity, but becomes something you move through. This process requires daily effort. Some days, reframing will feel natural, but on other days, old stories will pull you back loudly and forcefully. That is the nature of deep change, uneven, imperfect, but profoundly human. Every time you pause, every time you ask a question, every time you choose a new thought, you are rewiring your nervous system toward freedom. Reframing negative thinking is an act of emotional sovereignty. It is a refusal to live under the rule of your mind's harshest interpretations. It is choosing to see yourself, your life, and your challenges through a lens that makes you stronger, not more broken. Ask, Yourself often. What else could this mean? What perspective gives me the most strength? What would a wiser version of me see here? In that questioning, you loosen the grip of negativity. You create space for wisdom, for resilience, for peace. You become the author of your inner world rather than a character swept away by every passing thought. And that, quietly but steadily, changes everything. Next, one of the essential elements in this journey is the practice of empathy and compassion, not only for others, but also for yourself. Strength is often mistaken for hardness. We are often taught implicitly or explicitly that strength means being unemotional, moving through life untouched, building walls thick enough that nothing can get through. But the deepest strength is not found in walls. It is found in openness, in the quiet and enduring courage of empathy and compassion. Empathy is the ability to step out of yourself for a moment and see the world through someone else's eyes. Compassion is the choice to meet that understanding with kindness. And though these qualities seem outward-facing, they always begin within. Practicing empathy toward others means recognizing that everyone is fighting battles you cannot see. The anger of a stranger, the coldness of a friend, the betrayal of a loved one. When you practice empathy, you begin to see that no one is purely bad or difficult. Each person carries burdens, pain, and stories. Compassion allows you to see the weakness in others without condemning them, to see their suffering without blaming them. And when you can do this for others, you begin to do it for yourself too. Most of the time, these behaviors are not pure malice. Often, they are symptoms of wounds, fear, or unmet needs. The Stoics advised us not to become angry quickly, not because injustice doesn't exist, but because anger clouds judgment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself, what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize? When you see the humanity in others, you are not excusing every action, but you soften the sharpness of judgment that otherwise harms your own peace. You learn to say, this person's actions hurt me, but they come from their own inner battles. This comment caused me pain, but it speaks more about their wounds than about my worth. Empathy is not about absorbing others' emotions. It is understanding them enough that they no longer control you. It is seeing anger without responding with anger. It is recognizing fear without reacting in fear. It is holding your center steady in a world that often spins in chaos. And what about compassion toward yourself? In many ways, this is even harder. We are often our harshest critics, the most unforgiving judges of our own flaws. We forgive others for mistakes we would never allow in ourselves. We show kindness to our friends while condemning ourselves for the same missteps. Practicing self-compassion means daring to look at yourself with the same understanding you offer others. It is acknowledging your imperfections without letting them define you. It is realizing that growth is always messy, that mistakes are unavoidable, and that you are, in every moment, an evolving being, and that does not diminish your value. Seneca wrote, "No one becomes great all at once." Growth is a process. Mastery is a journey. And on this journey, there will be days when you get angry, act out of fear, and fail to live up to your ideals. Compassion is meeting those moments not with self-loathing, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what can I learn here? How can I move forward wiser, a little stronger? Self-compassion is not an excuse to avoid responsibility. True compassion is rooted in a sense of responsibility. It says, I was wrong and I take responsibility, but I do not define myself by that mistake. I will learn. I will keep going. This mindset turns failure from a dead end into a doorway to new opportunities. Practicing empathy and compassion for others and yourself creates a mind that is both sharp and soft. Sharp to see clearly, soft to respond wisely. It prevents bitterness from taking root. It keeps the heart soft, even when the world gives you plenty of reasons to harden it. Empathy teaches you patience with others. Compassion teaches you patience with yourself. Together, they build an emotionally mature life, where strength is not measured by how fiercely you can fight, but by how you can endure, understand, and keep moving forward gracefully. Every day offers an opportunity to practice. A colleague snaps at you. A stranger cuts you off in traffic. A friend lets you down. Your own mind reproaches you for something forgotten. In every one of those moments, you have a choice. React blindly or respond with compassion. Close off or open up. Sink into judgment or rise in understanding. The choice is not always easy, but it is always yours. And every time you choose empathy over anger, compassion over criticism, patience over blame, you become stronger, not in the fragile way of someone who cannot be touched, but in the deep way of someone who cannot be knocked down. Practice empathy. Practice compassion for others and for yourself. And watch how your world quietly but powerfully changes. Taking full responsibility for your reactions is the next step in the journey of emotional mastery. There is a silent, invisible boundary between what happens to you and what you choose to do with it. Many people never cross that boundary. They live their whole lives in a loop of blaming circumstances, blaming others, blaming fate, as if their emotions are puppets being controlled by someone else. But true freedom, the kind that no one can take from you, begins the moment you accept one simple truth without denial. You are responsible for your reactions, not for what happens, not for what others say or do, but for the meaning you assign to it, the thoughts you nurture, the actions you choose. In Stoic teachings, this distinction is sacred. Epictetus made it clear. We are not disturbed by events, but by our view of them. Pay close attention. He does not deny that events can cause pain. He simply refuses to grant them absolute power over our inner lives. Taking full responsibility is not about blaming yourself. It is not about self-blame every time you feel hurt or angry. It is the act of stepping into the role of owner. It is the quiet, powerful act of saying, my peace, my growth, my dignity. These are the things I need to protect and nurture. No one else can do that for me. When you refuse to take responsibility for your reactions, you give the outside world power over your inner life. You let a rude stranger decide your mood. You let a failure define your self-worth. You let the chaos of life decide whether you stand firm or fall. But when you take responsibility, you reclaim control. You begin to live from the inside out, instead of from the outside in. This shift is not easy, nor is it instant. It requires brutal honesty with yourself. It requires you to stop waiting for apologies that may never come. Stop waiting for circumstances to improve before you decide to remain calm, centered, whole. It requires you to stop measuring your inner state by external conditions. And most of all, it requires you to give up the comfort of excuses. There is a certain comfort in blaming others. It absolves us from the hard work of change. It turns the world into the villain and us into helpless victims. But comfort is not the same as freedom. True freedom is not comfortable. It requires the courage to see your role in your own pain. It requires the humility to admit, I chose this thought. I nurtured this emotion. I acted on this impulse. Responsibility does not equal perfection. You will still feel the sharp sting of anger, the pull of sadness, the wave of fear. You are human, but with responsibility, you catch yourself sooner. You step back earlier. You master the process instead of being mastered by it. Marcus Aurelius, who faced betrayal, war, and the pressures of the empire, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Understand this, and you will find strength." True strength lies not in controlling the uncontrollable. It lies in mastering what is always within your reach, your interpretation, your intention, and your reaction. When you take full responsibility for your reactions, a transformation begins. Criticism no longer destroys you. It merely informs you. Failure no longer defines you. It hones you. The behavior of others no longer decides the weather of your inner world. You become the steady sky above passing storms. This does not mean tolerating abuse. Boundaries are also part of responsibility. If someone disrespects you, you can and should respond with clarity and firmness. But even then, the energy you bring, the calm or chaos you show, is your choice. Responsibility is empowerment. It is the silent armor that protects your peace in a noisy world. It is the invisible compass that keeps you steady when life pulls you in 1,000 directions. And this is not a decision made only once. Every day, you are given hundreds of opportunities to practice. When someone cuts you off on the road, when a friend disappoints you, when your plans fall apart. Every moment asks, will you react blindly or respond consciously? Will you blame or will you take responsibility? Over time, these small moments shape your character. They build a foundation of strength that cannot be shaken by the actions of others or the unpredictability of life. They forge resilience, not loud or flashy, but quietly, firmly, unbreakably. Taking full responsibility for your reactions is not just a skill. It is a way of life, a statement that you will no longer live under the control of external forces, a commitment to live from within, anchored by your own values, guided by the responses you choose. Master your reactions, master your peace, master your life. Letting go of the burden of ego, pride, and grudges is a key part of mastering your emotions and your life. There is a weight we carry that we may not even recognize. It presses on our minds, tightens our hearts, clouds our judgment, and it does not come from what others have done to us, but from what we refuse to let go of. Ego, pride, grudges. We often think strength is about holding on, standing firm, not giving in. But sometimes true strength is the quiet decision to put down the burdens that no longer serve us. Sometimes it is in letting go, not clinging, that we find freedom. The ego whispers that we must always be right, that any offense is an attack, that losing face is an unforgivable humiliation. Pride says that forgiveness is weakness, that moving forward without retaliation is surrender. Resentment makes us believe that holding on to anger can protect us from further pain. But the Stoics, in their wisdom, saw things differently. They understood that clinging to offense, to pride, to the need for retaliation only binds us to the very things we say we despise. Marcus Aurelius once asked himself, "Will you be angry with the world as if the world cares?" He knew that carrying bitterness was like drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. Letting go of ego does not mean thinking less of yourself. It means needing less from the world to validate your worth. It is standing firm in your true self without the need for constant recognition. Letting go of the burdens of ego, pride, and resentment is not just an emotional act, but a decision about how you want to live. When you choose to release these things, you are truly free. You no longer allow external factors to determine your emotions. You begin to live fully, undistracted by things you cannot control. When your ego is quiet, you don't crumble under criticism. You don't need to dominate every conversation. You're not afraid of being wrong, because your identity is not built on the fragile foundation of always being right. Letting go of pride does not mean becoming passive, but choosing dignity over domination. Pride demands that you win. Dignity requires you to act with honor. When you let go of pride, you can apologize when necessary, forgive when ready, and step away from conflicts that would otherwise drain your peace. You can disagree without hatred, offer feedback without humiliating others, lead without needing to stand above everyone. Letting go of resentment is perhaps the hardest. Resentment brings a sense of righteousness. It brings a sense of justice. It nurtures the illusion that you are protecting yourself by holding on to every hurt. But the truth is, you are imprisoning yourself in the memory of pain. You give those who have hurt you free space in your mind, allowing them to continue hurting you over and over again, even though the moment has long passed. Forgiveness in the Stoic spirit is not about forgetting or excusing harm. It is about refusing to let the past define your future. It is about choosing freedom even when others are unfair. Seneca reminds us that the best revenge is not becoming like your enemy. You cannot heal by reflecting the pain you've received. You heal by breaking that cycle, by choosing peace over endless conflict. Practicing letting go of ego, pride, and resentment is not a one-time event. It is a discipline, a choice made every day, sometimes every hour. When the sting of criticism arises, you breathe and remember, I am bigger than this moment. When pride tempts you to hold your ground, you pause and ask yourself, what matters more, winning or wisdom? When resentment rises, you calm yourself and whisper, I will not carry this flame any longer. And as you practice, something extraordinary happens. Your mind becomes lighter. Your heart beats more peacefully. You move through life with fewer layers of armor, but greater invulnerability. Not because you are unhurt, but because you do not become hardened. You are no longer weighed down by every insult, every misunderstanding, every contempt. You can walk away when necessary. You can forgive without forgetting who you are. Imagine living each day without dragging the chains of old wounds. Imagine facing challenges without constantly defending the ego. Imagine apologizing freely when you're wrong and forgiving quickly when others stumble. Imagine the space, the clarity, and the energy flooding back into your life. This is not weakness. This is not naivete. This is strength in its purest form, the strength of self-mastery. Let go of the need to always be right. Let go of the desire to prove your worth. Let go of the burden of old angers. And in doing so, you reclaim something more precious than pride, your peace. 11. Setting healthy boundaries and communicating clearly. There is a quiet strength in learning where you end and others begin. In a world that often praises self-sacrifice and being always available for others, setting boundaries may feel uncomfortable, even selfish. But boundaries are not walls that keep others out. They are the framework for true connection, mutual respect, and authentic peace. When you learn to set clear and healthy boundaries, you no longer let others intrude on your space unconsciously. You do not allow others to drain your energy or disturb your peace. But at the same time, you do not build solid walls to keep everyone away. These boundaries allow you to love, help, and connect with others while still protecting your own safety and inner balance. Communicating clearly about what you need and want in relationships is not about demanding or being confrontational. It is an act of respect for both yourself and others. When you know what you need, when you dare to express it clearly, you not only protect yourself, but also create space for sincere and understanding connections. In doing so, you not only live a fulfilled life, but also contribute to creating a more peaceful world, where respect and genuine love are truly given. Healthy boundaries are acts of self-respect. They say, no aggression, this is what I need to be okay. This is what I cannot allow to happen. If I want to live authentically, this is the limit that protects my peace, my time, and my dignity. Without boundaries, even the most well-meaning, relationships will gradually become filled with resentment and imbalance. Though Stoics spoke little about boundaries, they lived by them. Marcus Aurelius understood the importance of protecting the inner life from corruption and distraction. He wrote, "Peace comes when you stop caring about what others say, think, or do. Care only about what you do. Boundaries are just the conscious choice to control your actions, no matter how the world pulls you." Setting boundaries begins with understanding yourself. First, you need clarity. What drains me? What energizes me? What am I willing to give? And what do I need to protect? Without this clarity, you will continuously react, overpromise, people please, and burn out without understanding why. Once you know, the next step is communication. Clearly, calmly, directly, no excuses, no apologizing for having your own needs. Setting boundaries is not about confrontation. It's about expressing the truth. It could be, I really appreciate the invitation, but tonight I need some time for myself. I'm unable to take that request right now. I value our relationship, and for it to stay healthy, we need to agree on some expectations. The language of boundaries is simple. The challenge is not the words, but the willingness. to speak them and hold firm when tested. And they will be tested. Some people will not like your boundaries, especially if they've previously benefited from you not having them. They may make you feel guilty, question, or pressure you. That is their right. But it is also your right and responsibility to stand firm, not with anger, not with apology, not with drama. Seneca once said, "Associate with those who can help you become better." Healthy boundaries are how you ensure your relationships uplift you instead of draining you. They are how you protect the sacred space where growth, love, and self-respect can thrive. Clear communication doesn't mean being harsh. You don't need to be abrasive to be firm. In fact, the strongest boundaries are often communicated with calmness and kindness. They don't attack. They simply affirm. They say, "This is my path. I walk it with openness. But I choose who and what accompanies me." The practice of boundaries teaches you that peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of clarity. It teaches you that saying no to what harms you is saying yes to what nourishes you. It transforms relationships from unconscious obligations to conscious connections. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of boundaries is this: you must respect your own boundaries first. Just stating them to others is not enough if you quietly betray them. If you say you won't respond to emails after a certain hour, but still do. If you say you need rest, but let guilt override you. Every self-betrayal erodes the trust you place in yourself. Every self-betrayal teaches others that your boundaries are merely suggestions, not commitments. Holding your boundaries not only helps you protect your space, but also demonstrates respect for yourself and those around you. It's not just about saying no. It's a demonstration of deep understanding and respect for what matters most to you. Honor your word with yourself as sacred. Others will learn from your example how to respect that. Setting healthy boundaries is an act of love, not only for yourself, but for those you interact with. It sets clear expectations. It prevents hidden resentment. It allows for authentic connection without being poisoned by unmet, unspoken needs, and it's an ongoing practice. There will be times you are tempted to bend your boundaries to avoid discomfort, to gain approval, to escape guilt. Resist it. Every time you stand firm in your truth, even when it trembles, you strengthen your center. You teach yourself that you deserve the space you occupy. You repeatedly affirm that your peace is a priority, not something that comes last. Top of form, bottom of form, clear communication. Set boundaries calmly. Protect your energy wisely. And watch how your life gradually but surely becomes lighter, cleaner, and freer. 12. Managing stress and anxiety with practical tools. Stress and anxiety are not flaws in your character. They are natural reactions to life's pressures, signals from your body and mind that something is being threatened, destabilized, or overwhelmed. But even though they are natural, they do not need to dominate you. Managing stress and anxiety is not about pretending life is easy. It is about building tools and habits that help you navigate difficulties with steadiness, clarity, and resilience. The Stoics faced tremendous uncertainty, war, exile, betrayal, and death. Yet above all, they found ways to master their inner responses to chaos. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not over external events. Understand this, and you will find strength. This awareness is the foundation of every practical tool for managing stress. It is not what happens externally that determines your peace, but what happens internally. The first and simplest tool is your breath. Stress makes it shallow, quick, and tight. Anxiety holds it high in the chest. By consciously slowing your breath, deepening it, and extending it, you send a signal to your nervous system that you are safe. Simple practice. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 4 counts. Exhale for 6 counts. Repeat this rhythm when stress arises, when fear tightens. This is not magic. This is biology. Movement is another tool that is often overlooked. When the mind is agitated, the body carries that agitation as well. Energy needs an outlet. Walk, stretch, exercise, move your body to let stress pass through and leave you. Just a few minutes of physical activity can transform anxiety from an overwhelming cloud into a manageable signal. Another powerful tool is cognitive reframing. Anxiety often thrives on catastrophe thinking, imagining the worst, replaying failures, magnifying threats. Train yourself to question those thoughts. Ask, is this fear accurate? Is it certain? Is it helpful? Most fears collapse under the weight of honest questioning. Reframing is not denial. It is choosing an empowering perspective rather than one that paralyzes. Journaling can also become a refuge. When stress swirls in your mind, put it on paper. Writing down emotions, anxieties, or stress not only helps you release them, but also gives you a clearer view of what is happening in your mind. This practice helps you identify and manage negative emotions before they can influence your actions. Write without editing, without judgment. Let the mess of fear and frustration pour out. Often, what overwhelms you in your mind becomes less frightening when you see it clearly on the page. Journaling helps give shape to the intangible, making it easier to understand, process, and face. And sometimes managing stress means asking for help. The Stoics highly valued self-reliance, yes, but they also understood the value of community and shared wisdom. Seneca exchanged deeply philosophical letters with his friends. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself inspired by the lessons of others. Seeking support, a conversation, a mentor, an expert is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is realizing that while you must walk your own path, you do not have to carry all the burdens in silence. An essential tool often forgotten is simplicity. Anxiety often grows in complexity. Too many obligations, too many tasks, too many competing priorities. Simplify. Identify the most important thing today. Focus on that. Let go of the need to solve everything at once. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Complexity feeds the imagination. Simplicity helps you anchor yourself in what is real, manageable, and actionable. Managing stress also requires acceptance. Accept that a little stress is unavoidable. Accept that anxiety will visit like the changing seasons. Fighting stress often makes it worse. Accepting it with a calm, observant mind, it's here again, takes much of its destructive power away. You become the observer, not the victim. And above all, remember that these tools are practices, not performances. There will be days when your breath will calm you. There will be days when anxiety still rises despite your best efforts. This does not mean you are failing. It simply means you are human. Mastery is not about never feeling stressed. It is about building a deeper resilience, a greater capacity to return to your center no matter how far you have been pulled away. Integrate these tools into your daily life. Don't wait for a crisis to practice them. Make breathing exercises a morning ritual. Make movement a non-negotiable part of every day. Make reflection and simplification part of your evening. These small, consistent actions build a foundation that helps you remain steady when the storms come. Managing stress and anxiety is not about eliminating all difficulties. It's about cultivating an inner refuge, a space within you that remains calm even when the outside world does not. You cannot always control the waves, but you can become a better sailor. 13. Embrace imperfection and practice self-compassion. There is a certain beauty in cracks, in the unfinished, in parts of yourself you usually want to hide. Yet most of us have a natural tendency to resist imperfection, wanting to fix it, mask it, or run away from it. We imagine that at some point in the future, after enough effort, enough achievement, enough discipline, we will become a flawless, perfect version of ourselves. But that vision is merely an illusion. The imperfect parts are a part of who you are. They are signs of growth, progress, and opportunities for learning and development. When you embrace the cracks in yourself, you are truly stepping out of the trap of unrealistic perfection and getting closer to your true self. Perfection is not the destination of growth. It is the enemy of growth. Embracing imperfection does not mean giving up excellence. It means giving up the illusion that you must be perfect before you are worthy of peace, respect, and self-compassion. It means understanding that flaws are not failures. They are the marks of your humanity. The Stoics gently but firmly remind us of this. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire and carried burdens that few could imagine, still wrote in his personal reflections about frustration, anger, and impatience. He didn't hide those flaws. He faced them with clarity and patience, understanding that what we strive for is progress, not perfection. Similarly, practicing self-compassion is not about excusing every mistake. It's about meeting yourself in reality with sincerity and kindness. When you stumble, and it will happen, self-compassion says, "Of course I stumbled. I am human, but I am not defined by this moment." When you fail to live up to your ideals, self-compassion says, "I see the gap, and I will keep trying." When you fail, self-compassion whispers, "This is part of the journey. I am still on it." Without self-compassion, every mistake becomes a personal sentence. Every imperfection becomes proof that you are not good enough. The mind spirals. Why can't I do better? Why am I like this? Will I ever get it right? And under the weight of that harshness, growth withers, courage shrinks. The risk of trying again becomes too great. But with compassion, mistakes become information, not judgment. They become teachers, not executioners. They bring lessons, not life sentences. Seneca wisely said, "While teaching, we learn." Similarly, while failing, we grow if we are willing to approach ourselves with patience instead of punishment. Self-compassion is a discipline. It is not natural. especially for those who have spent years believing that strictness is the only way to improvement. It requires a conscious effort to recognize the inner critical voice rising and choose to replace it with the voice of understanding. You can practice this with small things. When you forget an appointment, instead of berating yourself, you can say, "I am managing a lot. Forgetting sometimes is normal. I will find a better way to organize." When anxiety overwhelms you, instead of calling yourself weak, you can say, "I am carrying too much. I will take care of myself." When you lose your temper, instead of sinking into shame, you can say, "That is not the person I want to be. I recognize that. I will do better next time." Each small action like this reprograms your mind. They teach you that you are safe to grow, safe to try, safe to fail without losing your self-worth. Embracing imperfection also frees your relationships. When you accept your own humanity, you become more tolerant of the humanity of others. You no longer expect perfect behavior. You create space for mistakes, misunderstandings, and growth. You meet others not with rigid judgment, but with an open hand. This does not mean abandoning standards. It means setting those standards based on love, not fear. It is understanding that excellence does not come from the fear of failure, but from the freedom to learn, to take risks, to stumble and get back up. When you embrace imperfection, you embrace the full complexity and beauty of yourself. You accept that you are and will always be a work in progress. You shift your focus from trying to appear perfect to becoming whole. And that shift changes everything. It frees you from the unbearable burden of needing to arrive. It gives you the freedom to breathe, to try, to grow in an authentic atmosphere. The cracks remain, the sharp edges are still there. But instead of being marks of shame, they become imprints of life, of courage, of resilience. Embrace your imperfections. Practice self-compassion, fierce, steady, unwavering with yourself, and discover the quiet yet unstoppable strength that is not born from perfection, but from wholeness. This means looking at failures not as sentences, but as invitations. Every obstacle, every difficulty, every uncomfortable moment becomes a question. What is this here to teach me? How can I become stronger through this experience? Emotional balance is nurtured from this very ground. It is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to feel all the emotional ranges without being overwhelmed or defined by any one of them. It is the ability to feel sorrow without despair, anger without violence, fear without paralysis. It is the ability to return to yourself time and time again, no matter how far life pulls you. Imagine two trees in a storm. One tree is rigid, inflexible, unwilling to bend. The wind easily breaks its branches. The other tree is flexible. It bends and sways with the wind, but does not break. The flexible tree survives because it does not resist reality, but moves with it. This is emotional balance. It is not the rejection of feelings, but the refusal to fall. A growth mindset teaches you to expect imperfection, not as an excuse, but as a reality of life. It teaches you to approach emotions with curiosity rather than fear. When anger arises, you ask, what boundary needs to be protected? When sadness comes, you ask, what am I grieving? And how can I honor that without being overwhelmed? When fear whispers, you ask, What risk am I afraid of? And what does that reveal about the values I hold? Emotional balance is not indifference. It is presence. It is being able to stay with yourself through every wave of emotion without needing to suppress, inflate, or run away. It is the calm acknowledgement, I am feeling this and I can face it. Marcus Aurelius, amidst betrayal, plague, and war, reminded himself every day that if you suffer from something external, the pain does not come from the event itself, but from your judgment of it. And that judgment you have the power to change at any time. In those few short words lies the core of emotional balance. It is the ability to master your inner world, even when the outer world is chaotic. To develop a growth mindset and emotional balance, you must practice not once, not occasionally, but every day. You do need to learn to value the effort more than the outcome. You need to learn to forgive yourself when you make mistakes, not to excuse them, but to continue persevering. You must learn to find value in the effort, not just in the achievement. That requires humility. Humility to accept that you will never be a finished product, that there will always be something to learn, improve, and explore within yourself. And it also requires courage. Courage to try, to fail, to feel deeply, and to keep moving forward. Because growth is messy. Balance is a dynamic state. There will be days when you stumble. There will be days when you fall hard. But each time you rise, each time you choose to engage with life instead of withdrawing from it, you are strengthening the muscle of resilience. Over time, the voice of failure will grow quieter. The fear of imperfection will loosen its grip. You will no longer ask, "Am I good enough?" but begin asking, "How can I be better?" You will no longer fear failure, but begin to respect it as a teacher. You will no longer try to control life, but learn to meet it moment by moment with strength and grace. Develop a growth mindset. Cultivate emotional balance, and you will see that life, even in its harshest moments, is no longer something you endure, but something you continuously shape, continuously rise to meet. Mastering your emotions does not mean becoming invulnerable. It is not about building walls so high that nothing can touch you. It is about standing firm and open at the center of your being, feeling everything, but choosing how you respond to it. It is recognizing the first spark of anger and not letting it flare into a blaze. It is listening to the whisper of fear without letting it dictate your path. It is acknowledging sadness, anxiety, pride, and pain not as enemies to be defeated, but as messengers to be heard. When you learn to understand the emotional triggers, pay attention to the signals from your body and create a sacred pause before reacting. You are reclaiming a form of freedom that the world can never give, a freedom you must build from within. When you practice mindfulness in the ordinary things, nurturing deep self-awareness, naming and accepting your emotions, you are learning to live fully in the present with courage and clarity. You are restructuring the thoughts that once confined you. You are practicing empathy for others and, equally important, for yourself. You are stepping into a profound and silent responsibility for your own reactions. No longer blaming the world for the storm in your mind. You are letting go of the burdens of ego, pride and resentment, the silent thieves of peace. You are setting boundaries with calm and love. speaking your truth clearly, without aggression or apology. You are managing the inevitable waves of stress and anxiety, not by fighting the storm, but by mastering the boat that sails through it. And above all, you are embracing yourself, a beautiful, imperfect human, always in the process of becoming. You are choosing growth over stagnation, resilience over rigidity, presence over panic. This journey is not linear. It is not neat. It does not end today, tomorrow, or even in a year. It is a lifelong journey, a choice made every day, the choice to return, time and time again, to the depth within you where peace does not come from circumstances, but is forged by your will and agency. And so, I leave you with this: true strength does not lie in achieving perfection. It lies in the ability to embrace yourself with all your imperfections and cracks and continue moving forward. When you can stand firm in your own failures, when you can acknowledge your emotions without being controlled by them, you are honing an unshakable strength, a strength that comes from inner freedom. Remember that every step, no matter how small, matters. Every breath, every pause, every time you choose calm over impulsiveness is part of the journey to becoming a grounded and free person. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to learn, to feel, and to change to become a better version of yourself every day. Finally, master your emotions with compassion, with patience, and with presence in every moment. When you truly live with yourself, you not only change your own life, but you also inspire those around you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope that today's sharing has helped you find peace and inner strength in your own life. If you found this meaningful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue walking with me on this path. Wishing you a wonderful day. Always stay grounded and present in every step you take. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.